Grand Seiko needs to make more watches like this one. This is the SBGY009, and I think it's a great pairing of the 44GS case and an upgraded spring drive movement. And I'll explain my reasoning why I like this pairing in greater detail in just a minute. But I would also not be opposed to this specific dial texture popping up again in other colors in the future. I really like how muted this is in certain lights, but how striking and noticeable it is at other angles. This again is the SBGY009 from the Heritage Collection. It's a limited edition watch that has sold out online from Grand Seiko's website, but it is available here and there at other select authorized dealers around the country. This specific example is on loan from Exquisite Timepieces. Exquisite is an excellent family-owned AD. They carry over 60 watch brands. They have everything from Seiko Sports to Grand Seiko to Breguet to Parmigiani Fleurier. They lend me fantastic watches like this one, and they've been doing it for years. So if you're looking into any Grand Seiko, I recommend Exquisite. Links are below, and yes, you are welcome to tell them that Bruce sent you. Now let's talk more in depth about what makes this Grand Seiko model great and why I would like to see more models like this one. Essentially, it's just two basic things: a thin upgraded spring drive movement with above average aesthetics and finish work set within my favorite historic Grand Seiko case design called the 44GS case. And, this case, because of the hand wind spring drive caliber, is now thinner. So it's more elegant, it's more comfortable while it's being worn. So this watch, including the dual sapphire crystals, is only 10.5 millimeters in height. It's not an ultra-thin watch, but it is noticeably thinner than most Grand Seiko mechanical or spring drive movements or models that have those movements, and that makes a significant difference on the wrist. In my own opinion, the height of a watch can really make or break an overall watch experience, and unfortunately, Grand Seiko has quite a few thick watches that I personally wouldn't consider buying, even though I love everything else about the watch, and that's frustrating as a watch fan. So on a design like this one, seeing that thinner case, seeing the great newer spring drive movement, it's just an exciting step in the right direction. Now, I am not one of those watch collectors who advocate for, let's say, 9mm or thinner sport watches. I'm perfectly happy at under 11mm, and there is such thing, again, in my opinion, as a watch looking too thin. With how faceted, with how angular this 44GS case is, the 10.5mm total height, it looks perfect. It's not too tall, it's not too thin, it's properly proportioned, and this is one of the biggest draws of the watch to me. Now, the equally important other draw to this model is the 9R31 movement. This is a newer Grand Seiko spring drive caliber. It's hand winding. It has the same plus or minus 15-second deviation rate per month, the same 72 hours of power reserve, the same 30 joules as the older and far more common 9R65 movement. But this 9R31 has two mainsprings that are set in parallel, and the movement is noticeably thinner than the 9R65, and in my opinion, far more attractive from a finishing standpoint. So take a look at the brushed back plate, the anglage around the jewels, around the blued screws, and around a couple circular holes that Grand Seiko has placed for viewing hints of the components beyond. The brushing, the polishing, it really looks sharp. This movement feels like it's appropriate in a luxury priced watch. The 9R65 is I think solid at the price, but when you go in on a macro level, the anglage on those calibers, it just doesn't quite look as crisp as on this 031. You start to notice some roughness here and there on a 6.5, and that just isn't found, at least in my experience, on the 031. Now, the other part to this movement that I know a lot of watch collectors will appreciate is the placement of the power reserve complication on the movement viewing side as opposed to the dial side, which the majority of spring drive calibers have. While this makes the wearer need to take off the watch to view the remaining power reserve in the in-series barrels, it also brings some more balance and symmetry to the dial side. And I think a majority of collectors would agree that dial symmetry is more important than the ease of reading the power reserve complication at a glance. And I'd like to know what you think about that. Please sound off below with your opinion. Do you like the power reserve indicator in the movement, or do you like seeing it on the dial? Speaking of the dial, as with all Grand Seiko models, this dial is very well executed. The applied indices are sharp, they're tall, they're perfectly finished. The Dauphine hands are also razor sharp, clean, expertly finished. I mean, it's really exciting to see these details under a loupe or under a macro lens. The dial also has that cocktail time-esque texture that fans out or explodes out from the hand stack out to the circumference of the dial. I think it looks great. Now, this is where I wouldn't mind seeing some other colors in the future. This navy on the 009, it looks black in most lighting conditions, and it's only at some angles or some light situations that the deep blue color comes to the forefront. So it does change, but really it's very muted. And perhaps Grand Seiko could do other more saturated or more striking colors that have this texture, that are paired with this awesome thin 44GS case and contain the 9R31 spring drive movement. I think that that recipe would make for some very compelling releases. Now, this particular reference is limited to 1,500 pieces. It's individually numbered on the case back, and it is available right now directly from Exquisite Timepieces, my recommended Grand Seiko authorized dealer. Links are below, including to my personal sales associate, Joe, if you're interested. Now, let me know what you think about this watch below. What would you like to see more or less of? Do you agree with my sentiments? Do you disagree? I welcome all that discourse below. If you enjoyed this video, it would really help my channel if you could click like. If you want to see other more detail-focused videos on other luxury watches, please subscribe. I post content like this multiple times per week. Thanks.